resource cards are a huge building block of TCGs. I mean, absolutely massive. Almost every TCG has in some way or another a resource. You know, in Magic the Gathering, you have mana, lands. You know, in Pokemon, you have energy. In Yu-Gi-Oh, the creatures are the resources in some way. You have a limited number of things you can do per turn, and that in turn becomes your resource. In our game, we really didn't want to be limited to having to put up to, 30% of your deck as a resource only card. So we combined our resources with the card that every deck needs anyway, which is Adventurers.
Why have cards in your deck that only exist to be resources when you can just implement that as your creatures instead? Which was it stemmed from the idea of, what if your creatures were your resources during the game? And so what ended up happening was a long and arduous process of figuring out, okay, well, how much resource should a creature provide? Which is the toughest question that you have to answer with this kind of system.
In other TCGs, you'll find that resources are static. Mana is one mana. In most cases, there are always exceptions. Energy is one energy. In most cases, there's always exceptions. But that's just it. One card, one resource. Our game necessitates a bit of difference and change in that. We wanted to flavor it like your adventurers were doing contracts. They were making money for your guild. You ever play an MMO and you and your friends, or you join a guild?
Let's do this. Leroy Dragons!
And you're all pulling together money, you're all getting things, and as your guild becomes wealthier, you're able to do more things as a group. Well, that's the idea. On the base level, level 1, they always yield 2 bundles, which is our resource for the game. Their level 2s always yield 4. Their level 3s always yield 6.
At the start of my turn, I will draw a card, and I will yield bundles equal to my adventurer's bundle yield. In this case, Slime level 1 gives me 2. Goop Demon level 1 also gives me 2, so I will get 4 bundles to play with.
But that wasn't always how it was. The original, oh yeah, so it was just whatever.
Yeah, we handpicked all of the bundle yields for each of our adventurers, and so it was a wide array from 1 to 7, I think is what it was at one point from my memory.
There was one that did 10. That didn't last one single playtest.
No.
It was so busted.
It's a good time to say this. The yields that you retrieve from your adventurers can be used against you. If they're defeated in battle, your opponent does yield that many bundles from their defeat, but they have to be defeated specific wording.
So how our bundle systems work is that at the beginning of your turn, you receive all the bundles, all the resources that you're going to get during your turn. The key difference between the old system and the current system is that at the beginning of your turn, you used to not have to reset your bundles.
Effectively, if you had 20 bundles and you got to the end of your turn, your opponent's turn would begin, you would still have 20 bundles, and say you didn't use anything. You would begin your turn with 20 bundles and then get your resources added onto that. It was a problem. We even had to have a win condition where it was get 60 bundles, you win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was too much.
It was to prevent such a stall in the board state, because if you had all of those bundles and they never went away, even if you didn't do anything, it would just be a lull of, well, anything your opponent can and will do, you can just prevent that.
It was crazy, but we kind of went the MTG route of resetting your resources at the beginning of your turn back to 0. And then you get all of them back. You know, in Magic, you untap your lands at the beginning of your turn, you no longer have any mana, and you begin again. In Pokemon, you only get to do one thing with your energy, so it doesn't really matter. In our game, we just decided that that was the best thing, and it instantly felt so much better.
So we're going to vaguely mention the stash in a second here, so I just want to go ahead and go over the basic idea of the stash. It's a zone that we put into the game whenever you play cards into it. You play them for no cost, and they're face up, but you're able to play them on your opponent's turn, which is something that you usually can't do, because you can't play cards from your hand during your opponent's turn in our game.
So, in our old system, when bundles did not reset between turns, you actually were not very incentivized to use your stash. You may see over here that I can see everything that he's doing, with that he could potentially do on his turn. But given that our bundles don't reset between turns, he has no incentive to use any of that, putting less pressure and less timing importance on what you put in your stash.
And all of that really is to say that your resource system has a huge impact on how your game interacts with itself. Before we changed the way that bundles operated, a whole part of our game didn't even feel like fun and rewarding.
The current bundle system as is requires you at the beginning of your turn to reset your bundles to 0. Before, in previous iterations of the game, that wasn't always the case. You were able to keep your bundle bank, which wasn't a term or anything like that, but you kept the amount of bundles that you had throughout every turn. And so you would just get more at the beginning of your turn. And so the problem with that is that that ended up leading to snowbally states where no matter what your opponent could do, you always had a response because you had enough resources to just take care of whatever it is that they were doing. Or if they somehow got rid of your board state, to just put all of those guys back on the field anyway.
It did become an issue because, imagine you get completely wiped on your turn. Your opponent has 40 bundles. You go back to the beginning of your turn, you gain nothing. Absolutely nothing. And a couple more things that we're going to add on and talk about. So, bundles as a resource, despite all of our best efforts, did still have some issues. So we implemented that your guild as a baseline would always yield 3 bundles to you. So no matter what, if you had 0 adventurers, you would always get 3 bundles. It felt really good for a while. It was still kind of a problem that your opponent would get ahead of you.
At the beginning of our system, it was 5.
Oh yeah.
For a short bit,
it was 5. Hey, so they're mowing outside, so if you guys can hear that, I'm sorry. So you always have a way to get resources, even if you've been completely wiped, because we wanted to avoid snowballing.
So let's go over basically what we've been talking about in summary. Our game uses a system of resource very similar to money. Your adventurers get these things called bundles, which is their payment, it's their income, and they give that to your guild. Your guild also gives you a little bit of income. There is a little bit more depth to this system and the way that it interacts with other systems in our game, but for now, we're not going to really get into that because we want to focus primarily on telling you about how the resources work at a basic level. The average turn in Shroudveil Guild Battle begins by returning your adventurers back to their default state and then yielding their bundles yield along with the base yield of your HQ. This is effectively the amount of resources that you have to play cards per each turn. Whenever your turn is over, whatever bundles that you have remain in your bundle, let's call it a bank, but when your turn begins again, you reset your bundles back to 0. This incentivizes playing cards during your opponent's turn and from your stash so that you don't lose out on the resources that you gain throughout your turn. So, when making a TCG, if you're designing one of these systems, just be careful. Don't make the same mistake that we did, wherein we assumed that building up resources more and more and more throughout the game would be good for your game experience. Because in actuality, what it winds up doing is cultivating snowballing and curb stomping people who got an unlucky head start. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about comeback mechanics and other things that we did, and especially the mechanic that affects bundles the most, which is guild damage. But we'll get into that in another video. Until then, just let us know what you think of our resource system. You can comment here, you can look in the description for places to find us. As well, we'll have the rulebook in the description. And if we can get around to it, we will be posting a full playtest soon.
Our HQs are basically our stadiums or enchantments. We'll do it one more time.
One more time, buddy. It's okay. It's okay. He's nervous, okay? Give him a break.